Hello, Super Kickers, and welcome to round 3 of the Superkick season 2024 version. We have got some exciting results to report back from last week. Just really quickly, we had the Pirates defeat Vitatel by a kick, and also the Scorpions defeating the Vengeance in a pretty tightly contested game by 10 points. Two really good games, those ones. And we had a real determined Quiche, or East Quiche outfit, getting one back at the Goalfest, also winning by about 20-odd points. I think it was 21 points in the end. Isdon is good also, having a fantastic first win for the club's history, upsetting the Pokie Bombs in a BH Cup ripping contest there. So this week, we start off with the Goalfest 2-1, hosting the 3-0 top of the ladder Scorching Stars, and you can see with that name Scorching Stars, there is a reason why they're at the top of the ladder. And just for everyone in Superkick, this week the bye teams are the Giants and the Suns. So any players you have from those two sides, they are going to have a rest. So we look at the Goalfest team this week. They have got a lot of outs, actually. Quite a few players from both the Giants and Suns who are missing, and also have got a undisciplined Peter Wright, who has been suspended for 4 weeks, deservingly, for his bump. I think it was Cunningham, who he got from the Swans. And really, apart from maybe Membry and McDonald, who have been positive recruits for the club, there isn't really much depth outside of them. And a couple of other injured players. Liam Henry, I think, is another one that got injured and looked quite promising last week. So with the Stars team, they've actually got the return of Danaher and McCarthy, who had a bye last week. So that makes even last week's win against the Mangoes a very impressive one for them. And also have Mychek and Elliott, who I think will return to some form this week. So really, by Thursday night, it could be 10 to 12 goals to nothing for the Scorching Stars. And we look at Marshall and Butters, who have also been in form. Marshall kicking 4 last week, and Rochelle and Gresham also have been very good contributors to the Stars outfit. So not much more needs to be said in this game. The Stars will win this game pretty easily, 55 points. Let's go to the Vitatel Magpies and the Southeast Scorpions. Both are two teams who have had some epic matchups against each other in the past. Vitatel, though, languishing down the bottom at 0-3 with the Vengeance, and the Southeast Scorpions sitting pretty, I think, in the top 2 or 3, 2-0. Charlie Cameron returns for the Scorpions, and Ginnivan will look to ignite the team on Easter Monday. We've got Van Ruin and Cozzy Pickett also, who have looked pretty, ominous. Cozzy Pickett's made a really good start to the season. I'm really liking what he's doing. And Max King's having a rest. He decided to do something a bit undisciplined last week and will have a week off. But the Scorpions have found a bit of a comeback gem in Taberner, and we'll also look to Owens, who plays very well at Marvel, to get a multiple for him, and the smooth-moving Sam Switkowski. He's a little gem. I do say it. It's the second week in a row I've said this about him. I think he will look to hit the scoreboard again. For Vitatel, though, they have got Jackson in the ruck going down forward, kicking goals. You've got Higgins, who kicked 4 last week, who looks really good for the Saints, and also gets the return of Hipwood and Curnow, which is massive. And Curno's got an awesome matchup this week against North Melbourne. Usually kicks goals against them, so I'm a little bit worried there for the Scorpions with that matchup. And also Ugle-Hagan and English have got the Eagles, I think, on Sunday. So again, there's going to be more goals there. So for me, it's going to be an upset. I'm really, really sorry for the Scorpions. I think they've been a really good side early on, but Vitatel are going to upset them in a classic 7 points upset for Vitatel this week. Let's go on to the next game, and this game here is going to be between two sides who, look, it might be a better game than what I think what it looks on paper. It's not as good, even though they are 0-2. I think they will be pretty competitive this week against Boogie Woogie Sheep, who are 1-2, purely because they've got Papley and Amati both in form and do have Richmond this week. Papley kicked 4 last week, and I think he'll get more opportunities this week against Richmond. Amati also, I think, kicked a multiple last week, and I think he easily can kick another 3 or 4 this week. And will Cumberland come in for the Tigers to play his first game for the club? We don't know. So that's an interesting lookout. He usually kicks goals when he plays. I do, unfortunately, though, think Stringer might. I don't know. Will he struggle this week? I'm not sure. He has an increased responsibility now that Peter Wright's been suspended. But we need Isaac Rankin and Ben King to lift. Both of them can be damaging on their day. So I really expect them to do good things this week. For the sheep side of things, I think, look, Hawkins, he bullies the Hawks on Easter Monday. And also the young kid in Dempsey looks really good as well. So I'm expecting a multiple from him. Rioli and Frederick, also good players. And Jesse Motlop hasn't played yet this season, but I think he may return this week through injury. So that will be a massive gain for the club. And Norton and Waitman both, Norton lifted last week, kicking a couple of goals, but Waitman kicked a massive bag of 6. So too many options for me for the sheep. I do think his Donna's good may keep the game closer, perhaps, than what pundits think. I'm going to say 32 points, but I think this one could be closer. Let's go to our next fixture, which is the 1-1 Funky Balls taking on the 2-1 East Quiche. So the Funky Balls have got, unfortunately for them, they've got some bye players in Hogan and Riccardi. So Hogan's basically been the best player in the comp, in my opinion. So that's a massive loss, and Riccardi has looked damaging also at times. So they will both miss. They do get the return of Cam Rayner and Zorko, and I think they can kick goals tomorrow night against the Pies. So that's a positive for the club. And also Charlie Dixon's had a really good start to the season. I think he may kick a few goals against a depleted Melbourne backline on, I think it might be Friday or Saturday night. One of those nights they will be playing against Melbourne. So look out for him. And Baker has been a bit of a shock move down forward. So he kicked 3 last week. I think he can also hit the scoreboard against this week. And the club, well, the Funky Balls really needs Dusty to start rolling. And Gunston and Darling, both out of form. Pretty disappointing so far. I'm not expecting them to do much again this week. Maybe Darling might kick a couple of fluky goals. We will see. East Quiche have got Bolton kicking multiples and McInnes. He looked absolutely impressive last week against the Saints in his first game of the season. And Sam Darcy, what a great pickup he has been. Well, it was his first game last week, but geez, he looked really, really threatening. So he kicked a couple of goals and played a lot in the ruck, but when he went down forward, he looked great. And he could do the same thing again this week against the Eagles. It's a pretty soft matchup. And we're looking for Jeremy Cameron and Heaney again to have big games. For me, there's just too much firepower for East Quiche, considering that Hogan and Riccardi are missing for the Giants, and I think it might have been a bit closer if they were playing, but Quiche by 44. In our next game, we have got... who have we got over here? We're going to have a look at our last game of the round, actually, and it is between the 2-1 Mangoes. For me, this is the match of the round. The 2-1 Mangoes taking on the Poatina Pirates 2-1. Bit of a brotherly rivalry here. So Bailey returns, which is massive for the Mangoes. I think that really helps the club, helps the Mangoes, gives them a little bit more balance up forward and more scoring power and options for them. Haywood has been a positive pick for the club, and Larky and Amos, great players on paper. Both didn't perform last week, which kept the Mango score down, but I just don't see that happening 2 weeks in a row. And Horn Francis will probably return as well. Hayden McLean, he's looked really good this season, and I think he will be presented with another multiple opportunity against Richmond. And Burgess has just been signed by the club, so I think that's a solid signing, and I expect Ben Keys to have a good game this week. I think he's due for a good one, so I think he comes good. For Poatina Pirates, I don't know if he's playing mind games with his brother, because he's just picked up McMullen from the Giants, but he hasn't played a game since round 0. And then we look at the actual matchups this week, and the Giants have got a bye. So I don't know why he's done that, but yeah, he's got a bye. And then we've got Tex and Walters for the Pirates, who need to get a multiple this week, or at least I think they probably need to kick maybe 6 to 8 goals between them if they want to keep this game close. I think Owies is a nice return as well from his bye, and we need Langford and Finlayson to fire up for the Pirates, because I don't see their depth as being as strong as the Mongolian Mangoes. Considering, though, that both teams are 2-1, I think this is probably the match of the round in my eyes. But the Mangoes will bounce back and sink the Pirates' ship by 27 points. That is my review of this week's games. I will be back shortly for the Superkick Top 5, which has a new name. I'll let you know about that shortly. Okay, good luck to everyone's teams this week. Welcome back, everyone. This new segment that I started off last week was called Superkick Top 5, but I can happily tell you that we have got a new name for this segment, and the name, what we're going to call this segment each week, is Who's the Best with Fest. So looking at our top 5 goal kickers for the season, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are the best, who've scored the most goals, but look at, some of the 1%ers that these forwards may do, how they impact games. Do they help teams, come back, make fight backs in a game, or, do they help the big, the big gun sides, you look at sides like the Scorching Stars. Do these players help them keep their position near the top of the ladder? So, who's the best with Fest? Let's have a look at our 5 nominations for round 2 from last week. And I can say that there are a couple of players who have remained in the top 5 from round 2. So we're going to go in order from 5 to 1. And at number 5 is a player that I had as a special mentions last week. And this player has kicked 6 goals so far this season. And he's a Swans player, he's a Scorching Stars player, and it is Chad Warner. He's kicked 6 goals, another multiple last week. He's influencing games. And look, he's a midfielder kicking goals. And so midfielders that kick goals and do it regularly are really going to make Superkick teams strong. So Chad Warner, number 5. You've had a great start to the season. Let's see if he keeps it going. Number 4 is Harry McKay. Did have a bye last week, but he was at 3 previous week. But I have got him at number 4. He's kicked multiples in each game, and I think he will be good enough to keep his top 5 position with another multiple this week. At number 3 is another Sydney Swans player. This player helped Is Good get a win last week. Tom Papley. He's kicked 6 goals. He kicked 4 of them, as I said, last week. He actually had 400 metres gained as well. So he's really running hard, getting a lot of metres gained for his side. So Tom Papley, you are a deserved number 3 pick. At number 2, I have got Bailey Fritsch. He kicked 5 last week and was a match winner really against the Goalfest for the Quiche, but he also kicked 4 in round 0. So he's had 2 bags of a 4 and a 5 with a goalless game in between, but he's my number 2. He's really impactful and deserves that. And in number 1, no surprise, it is Jesse Hogan. He's still on 12. Well, sorry, he's moved to 12 goals, but he kicked 2 goals too last week, and it easily could have been 4 goals straight. So he had another nice game last week. He really does, help his team. He's really selfless and could kick a lot more goals. But he is my number 1, and that is Who's the Best with Fest in our end of round 2. End of round 2. So let's see who can keep their spot this week. Before we begin our BH Cup matchup for this week, I just wanted to touch base regarding one of the previews that I spoke about earlier with the Is Good and Sheep game. I think I mentioned about Ben King kicking a multiple or getting involved, but he has a bye, so that would make it pretty hard for him to do that. So apologies about that. But let's get on to this week's BH Cup matchup, and that is between let's have a look who it is between. I think it's a couple of teams languishing down the bottom in their respective competition. So we have got the Wobbly Kickers from the SMS comp taking on the Doctors Vengeance team. So a bit of an interesting one, this game, because, look, to be honest, here's the thing. Both these teams are down on confidence, and one of them are going to get a win. So, well, unless there's a draw, although I think we've got the 9th best goal kicker. So, unlikely a draw, but we have 2, 0 and 3 sides. The Wobbly Kickers have got Tex and Shy Bolton, as well as Eric Hipwood, who has been well rested, that returns this week. They will look towards Sonny Walters and Mitch Owens to kick multiples in their respective matchups. And actual Jade Gresham's been a little bit of a good recruit for the kickers. So he's one that actually hasn't been wobbly, and he's been kicking straight and kicking them through the sticks. So that's the Wobbly Kickers. They're the main players that I'm expecting to kick goals from them. when we look at the Dr. Vengeance side, we're going to need Stengel and Henry. They're a very cap-dominant team, and a lot of their goals are going to come on Easter Monday. So we're going to look for those two to hopefully combine for 5 for them. They do get the return in Patrick Cripps and Corey Durden for the Easter Thursday matchup against North Melbourne. And they're really going to need to hopefully get a multiple of maybe between 2 and 4 goals for Tom Lynch. They really need an increase of output from him. He's their focal point. And Libba and Bontempelli, I'm predicting for a 4-goal game between them two, as they do take on the Eagles. So there could be some goals. I think this game might be a more higher scoring game than what predictors may give. So I'm going to tip with no confidence at all. I think the wobbly kickers, they're probably a little bit more confident than the Doctor's Vengeance at the moment. They've probably got a touch more class, and I'm predicting the wobbly kickers to be straight kickers this week and have their first ever win, getting over the line by 16 points over a rugged Dr. Vengeance outfit who have been more competitive this season. So that is my BH Cup prediction. Hello to everyone from the SMS Superkick comp. Just going back over some round 2 results from last week. We had the Freesmoke suffocating the wobbly kickers by plenty. Unfortunate for the kickers there. We also had the Asians who defeated Rocket Rod, as well as the Walshdogs defeating White Line Fever in 2 pretty close contests. And we also had probably, I reckon, one of the more enjoyable games of the season so far in a very high-scoring contest. We had the Rubber Gloves who slapped Minted Mick back to the veggie patch. So that was a pretty tightly fought contest. But, yeah, it was just the Rubber Gloves, just too much there. So let's have a look this week in our round 3 matchups. So we have the Pokie Bombs taking on the Bamboozled Asians. So the Pokie Bombs are 1-1. Bamboozled Asians are 2-1. And looking at the Pokie Bombs team, we've got Harry McKay, who comes back from his bye and has kicked a multiple in each game so far. So he will continue that form. Reef McInnes also had his first game last week, kicked 3. He looks to be a real positive inclusion to the Bombs team. You have Josh Rochelle as well as McDonald and Heaney from the Swans, who have really good matchups on Sunday against Richmond. Cooper Sharman should probably get more of a look at it, considering now Max King has a 1-week suspension. And watch out for the Speedy Switkowski under lights at Optus Stadium on Friday night to perhaps get a multiple. Just remembering as well, this week we have got the GWS Giants and the Gold Coast Suns who have got byes. So anyone that has players from those 2 teams will not play and have a rest. So Ben King and Bedford have byes for the Pokie Bombs. As for the Bamboozled Asians, we look at Charlie Cameron and Owies coming back in from their byes last week, and they will probably get multiples in my opinion. They both are rested and ready to go. Norton came back with a multiple last week after having a down week the week before. And Haywood and Rankin, 2 dangerous forwards who I expect to get on the scoreboard. Both have got reasonable matchups there. Riccardi and Caniglio will miss for the Bamboozled Asians, so that's a bit of a loss to them as well. But the Bombs, they will hit a feature this week, get 5 free games, and defeat the Asians by 5 points. So that is my prediction. We move on to the Flying Fortress, who are 2-1, facing the Freesmoke, who are 2-0. So 2 sides who've made very positive starts to their campaigns in 2024. The Fortress get back Danaher, Fantasia and Durden off their bye, and also have Jamie Elliott and Langford both in really top form, playing well last week, both kicking 3 goals. Noah Bolter, he's had a really great start to the season. He was in my top 5 last week, and I believe he could possibly continue his good form. but I think he will go back in parts of the game like he did last week as well. I expect Finlayson and Rioli, they may struggle a little bit with a tougher matchup against the D's this week. And Waterman, he's been a bit of a surprise this year, and he may kick a couple in the absence of Oscar Allen for the Fortress. We go to the Freesmoke team, and Jesse Motlop should return from injury this week. I would say that Jeremy Cameron has a pretty tasty matchup on Easter Monday, but Dangerfield will miss, which isn't a surprise. He was always going to get injured at some stage, so he misses for a few weeks. And look, we've got some demons here in Fritsch, Pickett and Ben Brown, all dangerous players, but a tougher matchup again this week. I think it's going to be a little bit of a grind, that match, the Port Adelaide and Melbourne game. So those three players may not have higher scoring games as what we've seen in previous weeks. But you've got Higgins, Warner and Bontempelli all in good form, all hitting the scoreboard pretty hard. So there's plenty of depth to this Freesmoke team. I think they've actually got one of the better teams actually in this comp. So for me, the Freesmoke are going to burn the Fortress up and defeat them by 20 points. Sorry, Fortress. I think the Freesmoke just a little bit too strong this week. Let's move on to interesting game, this one. Rocket Rod, 0-2. It's maybe not as interesting as what I may have thought, but Rocket Rod, 0-2, play Walshdogs, 2-1. Walshdogs get the return of Bailey, and also have Papley and Waitman, who've had big games last week. And I expect Banfield to perhaps hit the scoreboard. But the match winner in Josh Kelly, who I think they won by 2 points over White Line Fever, I think it was, he misses with his bye. But we look at Rocket Rod and they've just got some issues. They've got Hogan and Green out with their byes. So really, all the attention goes to Ollie Henry and Bobby Hill. Sam Powell-Pepper still out suspended, and Horn Francis, he looks like he's ready to return, but there isn't much depth apart from that, and that is probably why they are 0-2. So Welsh Dogs will get a comfortable win, 36 points. Okay, let's move on to our next game, and this is probably one of our feature games for the round. I think these are two teams that are 1-2, but easily could be 2-1, perhaps 3-0. So, look, I look at Minted Mick, who are 1-2, playing all out A-Trac 1-2. Minted Mick have Zorko, McCluggage, who return. And I expect a big game from Charlie Dixon because when you think about it, Melbourne will probably be missing Lever and May with injury, at least one of them. So I think he will get a hold at some stage. And possibly Harry Petty may have to move back to defence this week. They've also got Jackson and Chandler. And I'm looking for Mansell to have a really positive start, who's just been the latest recruit from Minted Mick and can dusty lift. He's been a little bit quiet to start the season, but, a big game from him is just around the corner. Lukosius has the bye, and Max King has been suspended with a silly infringement there last week, getting Finn McRae. So that is a little bit of a bummer there for Minted Mick. We go to All Out A-Trac. Rayner returns from his bye, and they will be hoping that Stringer and Fogarty get multiples to put some scoreboard pressure on Minted Mick. I'm also expecting, though, Mitch Lewis and Ginnivan to get busy on Easter Monday. I think at least one of them has a big game in them. And they probably need, A-Trac, I think, will need 6 goals between them because they have lost Ainsworth, Humphrey and Flanders with a bye. So they've been quite useful, those players, for A-Trac. But Minted Mick, this is my prediction, Minted Mick will regroup and derail A-Trac this week and win by 20 points. Let's go to our final game, and this is probably the marquee matchup for the round. It is the White Line Fever and the Rubber Gloves hitting it off. Both teams are 2-1 in the top half of the ladder. White Line Fever have a boosted return in both Charlie Curnow and Lincoln McCarthy, so they're both going to be pretty goal hungry and refreshed from their byes. We're looking for Jai Miss and Taberner also to get opportunities on Friday night. I think both players In particular, Amos has looked really good. Even though he only kicked the 1 goal last week, he's looked good earlier in the season. And Paul Curtis has been a nice little pickup there. He, I think, may have a multiple in him on the Good Friday game. Darcy Byrne-Jones has also been a good contributor as well, kicking the odd multiple here and there. And then you've also got Amati, who plays against Richmond on Sunday, and Ugle Hagen and Sam Darcy, who I believe will get plenty of chances against a pretty depleted West Coast side. Callum Brown was probably the only, after having a really good start in the first couple of games this season, had a quieter week last week, but he has a bye this week. And then we move on to the rubber gloves. Cottrell returns. He's a little bit of a team player there. Really gets the side up and going. Peter Wright, unfortunately, though, suspended for 4 weeks for his, bump on Cunningham from Sydney. But they will look towards Hawkins and Dempsey really dominating the Easter Monday and getting the game in the rubber gloves' favour. Tracy, though, looks like a great pickup. He's getting better each game. And Marshall and Membry also have been good picks for the rubber gloves. And we're looking at Hayden McLean also to match up well on Sunday when they take on Richmond. I think he has 2 goals in him. Rosas and Daniels have the bye, though. So they're a bit of a loss for the rubber gloves, as they have lots of run and scoring power that they're going to miss. So, look, this game is probably the tightest game so far that I've had to pick for the season. It's a 50-50 matchup. I'm going to pick the Fever by 1 point, just purely because of the Charlie Curnow factor. I think he may kick 5 or 6 on Good Friday. All the best to all teams this week in the SMS comp.